welcome to Iridium Rock and Metal Reviews. And today I've got with me Paul Anderson again. How you doing, mate?
Very good, Lee. How are you?
Yeah, good. So the other day we tackled the Michael Sweet top songs, our favourite songs, and today we're going to rank the albums, how we perceive the albums. So, it's quite a hard one this week because he's had a lot of different styles of music, hasn't he, through his career as a solo artist. It's changed a lot. In the beginning, very lot more melodic, sort of softer, sort of AOR side. He's even done a hymn album, and now he's full on metal, isn't he?
Yeah, sure is. The last few albums have been pretty brilliant.
They have. So depending on what you like, obviously, and a lot of Stryper fans and Michael Sweet fans, obviously, on social media, because we're on the social media sites, they've been calling out more, a lot of them, for the stuff he did at the beginning. You can sort of understand that because it was a lot different, wasn't it? The first few albums as a lot sort of more like AOR sort of style, and you can sort of understand that because we're getting the heavy stuff with Stryper now, aren't we? Them last 4 albums from Stryper have been amazing, and some of the elements of the last 3 solo albums have been a little bit similar sometimes, in a good way for me, but I mean, you can sort of understand that some fans want him to do something a little bit different, but so it's made for an interesting listen, to tell you the truth. And I mean, you've done the same as me with this one, mate. We broke these down song by song, so we've both gone back and listened to the songs and ranked each song, if you like. Then added the scores up, divided it by the amount of songs on the album, and gives us a score. So it's probably I started doing this a little while ago, and it's probably the fairest way of doing it, because sometimes you can hold on to an album from nostalgia, if you like, can't you? Because you just think, that's the best album because that's the one you remember. But when you actually break the songs down, it makes for an interesting ranking.
Yeah, it really does. I mean, the other day I was in the impression we were going to tackle this part the other day with Mark as well, and at the time I just kind of had gone through the old way and just kind of gave every album a score in my head, and ranked them. And then when realized we weren't doing that and we were gonna you and I were gonna do this, I went yesterday and listened to every album through and did exactly that, scored every song, and I ended up getting surprised. There's the albums, a few that I thought would be, or the one that I thought would be like dead last ended up kind of a little closer to the middle of the pack. So it was
you sort of doubt yourself, don't you? You do the scores and you think, hold on a minute. You add them up again sometimes. That's what I do. Sometimes I add them up again. I think I made a mistake. That's surely my favourite album. And then, it's the fairest way of doing it, like I said, definitely. So that's cool. So what we're going to do is, obviously, there's 9 releases we're going to talk about. And people, some of the Michael Sweet fanatics out there will probably be thinking, well, it ain't, it's 10. Well, they are sort of right, because there's an EP we're going to speak about, Unstriped. We're going to include that in our discography to rank, and also there's the album that was Truth. Sorry, mate. Yeah, Truth, which was released independently by Michael first. Did quite well, I believe. Yeah, sold quite a few independently, and then it got released again later on a proper label. So we're only going to rank the release on the label, just to be clear for everyone. So 9 releases to talk about, and I'm going to go first this time, if that's all right.
Go for it.
Okay, so number 9. What comes at something's got to come to the bottom of the pile anyway. But I just want to say something, that his vocal range across these albums, though, mate, as he's one of our favourite vocalists. We always speak about how good Michael's voice is, even to this day, if not better somehow. But so vocally across all these albums, he's got a brilliant voice. But where it differs so musically, it is where my scores ended up, if you know what I mean. It's more the music, I suppose. So number 9 is Hymn. this was a collection of reworked hymns, if you like, that Michael did. And this came, for me, it came at the bottom. And you know me, we've spoken loads of time about my beliefs, and I'm not a Christian. This is nothing to do with that. I've literally purely on musically, I've scored this. So I mean, it's quite actually looking at the tracks themselves. I quite like Gilead and I Know are probably my favourite tracks on here. But as a whole, the album, there's a lot better albums for me in his discography. Something had to come bottom of the pile. I've actually scored this as well, like you have. So I'll give my score. It sounds quite low, but something's got to come bottom. It's 5.2. I've scored this. It's a 2006 release, just to clarify that. But that's my number 9.
All right. My number 9 was the EP Unstriped.
I know I don't tell you, I'm never quite enough. This time I'm gonna show you the stuff. Can you hear that? Love you crazy, don't be maybe, wanna be lazy. Love you all day, love you in the morning, love you in the evening. Can't stop breathing. Love's on the way.
It was a 5-song EP. This was an album I didn't even know existed until probably, I guess maybe going back probably 7 or 8 years maybe now that I realized it existed. But kind of surprised me one time. I ended up just hearing my standout track on this album was I Need You Now. And I heard that song, and it was kind of cool because it was, to me, it sounded like Michael was it was a very prayerful song. It was like basically just a prayer to God to say, I'm kind of done with what was going on, and maybe the Against the Law era, and they've mentioned how they were going through some real struggles during that time, and so this just sounded like a real prayerful track that I really liked it. And then all of a sudden I see the title Unstriped, and I'm like, where'd that come from? Anyways, I scored it a 6.64, and it's my number 9.
Cool. Okay, so my number 8 is the album Real. So Real, obviously it released in 95, and the reason why this is scored lower up for me is this is a real, not mainly acoustic, but there's a lot of acoustic music on this, and even though I don't mind an acoustic guitar, I'm not a big fan of it when there's a lot of it on an album. I don't mind the odd ballad with a bit of acoustic. I'm a bit of a metalhead, as you know, mate. I like a bit of electric guitar. But there are some really good, there's a couple of really good tracks on here. One that hit my honourable mentions, you got Second Chance, which is a great track, second track in, and The River, which is probably my favourite track on this album. Almost had a sort of southern sort of country feel to it, I like the actual title track as well. That was quite good, Real. But with me, do you know what I mean? I'm a bit of a guitar freak, really, sometimes. So I've scored it obviously quite low again, a 5.4. I've scored it. Real. That's my number 8, mate.
All right. My number 8 was your number 9, Him. I mean, I liked this album when it came out. I probably liked it a little bit more then than I do now. I thought this would score a little higher, but when I went through each track, I did like the standout tracks for me were Surrender and Take My Life. And I also liked Calvary. That being said, with Michael, with his vocal range, there are some really old classic hymns that I would have preferred he had put on this album. I would just like go mental if he did a version of How Great Thou Art. It's just one of my favorite hymns. And Old Rugged Cross, It Is Well With My Soul. These are hymns to me that I could just hear him singing, that I probably would have preferred. But overall, it was still a good album. But and I scored it a 6.86.
Cool. I mean, the thing for me is that I'm not really into cover versions that much. Striper do a few, and they're quite good as well. But as far as I was concerned on him, because I'm, a lot of these songs I didn't know, these hymns. So a couple I did. So they wasn't like cover versions, if that makes sense, because I hadn't heard them before. So it was, it was quite good. So, okay, then, mate, my number 7 is Touched. So, obviously this was in tribute to his wife, who was ill at the time. Really sad when you think about it. It was all piano led, mostly, a bit of classical as well. But it really tugs at the heartstrings, some of these songs. I mean, that the opening track I love, You Are So Beautiful. I thought that was really a cool rendition of that track. First Love, one of my favorite Striper ballads. I love that song, always have done, and that was quite a cool rendition of it, although I still prefer the original. But it really did tug at the heartstrings, this album. But it was a lovely tribute. Well, obviously she was ill at the time, going through a lot. Must have been hard to make. But I scored it and just bang on 6, actually, mate, that one. So that's Touched. That's my number 7.
All right. My number 7 was Truth.
Open your eyes, can't you see? Separate soul and spirit. Forgives, forgives, and sets you free. Calling you to eternity.
I scored it a 7.02. This was one of the ones that surprised me when I first did my original ranking, just kind of going off the top of my head. I actually had this as dead last, but Mark the other day started mentioning a lot of stuff, so I started listening. I went back, as I said, listened to every album, and this album I actually listened to it multiple times because I wanted to see if there's something I was missing, and it turns out that there was definitely some standout tracks. I mean, my absolute favorite was Save Me.
Yeah.
Like he said, I would love to see that on a Striper album. I think that'd be great. And there's a few others I like. There was a few that I just couldn't get into at all. I mean, it was a very eclectic album, definitely. Not sure if you noticed this, but there's the song Achilles Heel, which, it wasn't one of my top songs or anything, but the beginning riff on that song sounded like Smells Like Teen Spirit by Nirvana.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose there was some influences there. That sort of year, it's year 2000. So, there was a few riffs on the album. I wouldn't say obviously it's a grunge album, but I think there was some influences on there a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, definitely. Okay then, mate. Moving on to my number 6, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So I've gone from my number 6. I've gone on to one that's probably, well, I know it is a lot of Michael Sweet fans' favorite album, and it's his debut album, which came out in '94. So very melodic, almost AOR in places. What this album had, though, is some great tracks, but it scored lower for me because it just wasn't consistent across the album. But All This and Heaven Too, what a great song. I love the song Jesus. All I Want to Do Is Love You is a great track, so catchy. And I Think You Hear Me Knocking is also a brilliant track. But I just think for me, it lacked consistency. Although, like I said, it's a real fan favourite. This one, I scored it at 6.4, mate.
Mhm.
Michael Sweet solo album is my number 6.
All right. My number 6 was Touched.
Love you more tomorrow than I love you today. I love you in the sorrow and unexpected pain. I love you in the sunlight and in the pouring rain. My love, my life, my flame.
Scored that a 7.18. As you kind of mentioned, I mean, this was definitely just a love letter to his late wife. Well, she was still living at the time, but Kyle, you really felt the emotion in that album. Like you, I mean, it's a little too much piano on one album to really, say I love the album overall. But it definitely had some really good songs on it. Obviously, it covered a lot of the Striper ballads. Most of them, though, I did definitely prefer the Striper version. I know you don't care for Honestly. I love Honestly, the original version. I love the Roberts drumming on that song. I've mentioned that before. This one here was purely done as a 100% piano. So it was definitely a lot softer take on it. I would say my standouts were definitely the Joe Cocker classic, You Are So Beautiful. I also love the new original song he did, My Love, My Life, My Flame. Just a beautiful tribute to Kyle. I can't imagine what he was going through. I mean, to have to have the person that your life partner, be dying in front of your eyes, it can't be easy, and especially at that age. I mean, we're all getting older, and when you're older, you expect that's going to happen, but you don't expect it to get the news in your 40s or early 50s that you're going to lose your wife, and it's really sad. And I mean, she gave him the blessing to go and tour with Boston. I went to that one of those tour dates in Michigan, a great show. But yeah, like, it must have been really difficult to be on the road and knowing what she was going through back home. So
definitely mate, definitely. I mean, that album actually did exactly what it was meant to do. It was the perfect album for what it was, if you think about it. I suppose where we're actually looking at it taste wise for what is, it's just what it all is when you're ranking stuff in it. But it actually did exactly what it was meant to do, that album. It was perfect tribute to his wife, wasn't it? So there you go.
Yeah.
Okay then, mate. I think I'm on to my number 5. So number 5 is Truth. So yeah, I quite like this, and you can sort of see these albums, apart from, like, he obviously did Him after this and the tribute to his wife as well, but this was the third album, if you like, the full album, and you can sort of feel it getting heavier. You know what I mean? But like you said, that it did have some grungy sort of elements, probably a sign of the times, really. But I'm the same as you, mate. That Save Me track, the chorus on that Save Me track is just outstanding. It could have been on one of the new albums, could have been on a Striper album, Tomorrow's a really good track. I like the title track as well. I think it's great, but a bit of it's a real mix, sometimes a bit disjointed, I'd say, which is probably why it's come a bit lower. But I scored it a 6.6. The Truth album, mate.
All right. Well, my number 5 was your number 6. 1994, the original debut.
All this and heaven tell means nothing in between.
Um, I gotta say, it was obviously, what's that, 2-3 years after Striper broke up. When I heard that Michael was coming out with a solo album, I was like, just couldn't wait to get my hands on it. I'm starving to hear his vocal range again. I actually went to see his concert on that tour. He did a little tour.
Oh, right, okay.
I went and took the drive with a buddy of mine down to Buffalo to see that.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it was a good show for sure. I gave it a 7.58, and my standout tracks on that, I mean, I loved All This in Heaven too. The ballad Someday, to this day, actually, it's one of my favorite Michael / Striper ballads. Actually, I really love that song.
Yeah.
But my real standout track on this one, and it's probably because I'm a bit of a sucker for the saxophone, but I love Tomorrow Tonight.
Yeah.
Just a really catchy, like slow paced song, but that sax at the beginning, and just man. As much as a rocker I am, like, you give me some saxophone and I'm just I love it. It's something about that instrument. It's incredible. And when you mix it with rock, it's just great. So
cool.
Yeah, it's my number 5.
Okay, mate. Well, on number 4, probably a bit of a shock to come this high up, but it's the Unstriped EP. So I actually didn't. You said that you heard this late on, like 8 years ago or something. I only heard this yesterday. So when we were speaking before the show, saying, what are we going to include? You said, didn't you? Are we going to include both of the releases for the Truth album? And well, we decided to include the EP. And I said, well, I haven't heard the EP. I'm going to have a listen. So usually EPs as well. If I didn't actually sit down and do these scores the way I do, that EP probably would have come last if I'd heard it before, just because it's an EP, because it's only got 5 tracks on it. But because of the way we're doing the scoring, each track is scored separate, divided by the amount of tracks on the album, gives us a score. That's just a fair way of doing it. So musically, I scored it higher than the other albums so far, and I scored it a 6.7. So I love that.
I'm getting a little chuckle here because I'm thinking that you actually rated it just slightly higher than mine. It's a lot tougher on scoring than I
think I'm being a bit
dead last at 6.64, and you're already at number 4 with 6.7.
I think I'm in general, I'm trying to be a bit more meaner with scores these days. I think I've been a bit too, I don't want to give everyone the impression that everything's a 10. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah. I'm actually, it's funny. When I ranked a couple of the songs on Even the Devil Believes as a 10, that's probably like the first time I've done that. I mean, I just generally don't rate stuff a perfect 10 because that means it's perfect. And yeah.
It's easy to give high scores, and do you, is it a sincere high score? It's easy to do that because you don't want to put any bands down either, and I automatically give high scores of things. So I'm trying to be a bit more wary these days. But I mean, we all think of things differently, don't we? So whatever you think is an 8, might mean, it just means something different to certain people, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I think too, I mean, to be fair, I think you're bound to have a tougher scoring system because you're now doing this as a almost a full-time hobby with your channel. It's like, kind of reminds me of movie critics, like half the time I don't even listen to the movie critics, because half the time they say a movie sucks and I turn around and love it. Like, you go to Rotten Tomatoes and see the critic score, and then you look at the audience score and it's like off the charts higher, right? Because I guess when you're a critic, you once again, you can't love everything, and as you see more movies or listen to more songs, you're bound to, I think, get a little tougher and a little more critical thinking. So,
and it gives you more scope as well, because if you're talking about some bands release like 18 albums, so if you're ranking 18 albums and you start giving the lowest one a 7, you haven't got a lot of scope there.
No, definitely not.
Anyway, sorry, getting back to the EP, I actually really liked it. I thought it was great. The first 3 tracks were actually my favorite tracks. Love You Crazy, Give What You've Got, All I Want to Do. Obviously, All I Want to Do is also on the Michael Sweet debut album as well. But I even thought it gave almost a sleazy Sunset Strip sort of sound, especially the first couple of tracks.
Yeah,
definitely. That LA sort of sound, which obviously they were an LA band anyway, weren't they? They was on the Sunset Strip, weren't they?
Yeah.
From the beginning, So, but nah, good. A real good EP that. I like that. So thanks for making me listen to it. And that's my number 4, mate. Your number 4 now.
My number 4 was Real. And actually, I mean, this was almost a tie with 1994. 1994 scored a 7.58, and Real I scored a 7.59. So super close, basically. One of the greatest parts of doing this ranking was to actually go back and listen to both of those albums again. And I've found myself over the last few days just listening to both of those albums a few times, and realized how much I missed Real. I absolutely loved that album when it came out. I love the title track. I love Second Chance. The River, I gave The River a 9 out of 10.
Man, it's a good track.
That is just a beautiful song. So full of emotion. The lyrics, the message in that song, it's Christ directly speaking to you as a listener. Love that album. Got the acoustic version of Always There For You, so got a little different take on a Stryper song, probably the first time since he went solo. So yeah, it's good.
Okay, we're up to the top 3, mate.
Top 3.
Obviously everyone who's watching it who knows the albums, I know which are going to be my top 3, but what order? So my number 3 is I'm Not Your Suicide. So this was just, a complete change from what he had before solo wise. Started hitting heavy now, started getting more metal with this. I love the best songs on here. The Calls is a great song. It made my top Michael Sweet songs. I'm Not Your Suicide, the title track, is a brilliant song. Also like Taking on the World Tonight, Tony Harnell, that was a good track. All That's Left, the second track. So this is so much more consistent all the way through. It still wasn't, there was still more heavier to come, if you like. If you actually listen to these, obviously you've been listening to these albums as well, heavy wise, it wasn't quite as heavy as the albums to come, but it was still, for me, but it was still near enough there. So obviously my scores have shot up now. So on the Unstriped EP, for instance, I scored a 6.7. On I'm Not Your Suicide, gone up to an 8.2. So, you know, that's, I think these next 3 albums are such a huge leap for me, you know, being a metalhead. So yeah, I love the album, man. I think it's great. I think it is really great. I mean, that I'm Not Your Suicide track as well. I mean, it's in my head now. It's a great song. That is one great song.
Well, you're not going to believe this, but now it's me that's getting tougher than you.
There you go.
That was also my number 3, but I only scored it a 7.69.
I was sanctified. I used to feel justified. Only to be crucified by you, by you. Love has just begun. I'm standing in the shining sun. I'm not gonna run and hide, lay down and turn. No, not just suicide.
Standout tracks for me, definitely the title track and Unsuspecting. I also love The Cause. That was a great song. I know you love that one. There was a lot of great songs on that. It was also his start of working with different musicians on different songs, which was really cool. I definitely, it was a great album. Definitely got a lot heavier.
Yeah.
And yeah, the scores are starting to creep up a little bit more now. So
I'm glad you mentioned the musicians as well. Man, he works with some great people, doesn't he?
yeah, it just, you know what, and this is what, you know, drives me nuts when I actually do have some friends and my girlfriend who just don't like him at all, or don't like, and sometimes they'll say that he's not talented, and I'm like, okay, you know, you can not like something, it may not be your cup of tea or whatever, but you know, I think it's quite obvious how much talent Michael Sweet has. I mean, to be able to engage with the likes of George Lynch and Joel Hoekstra and you know, Tracy Guns and you know, all these guys, like, you know, you don't get there,
no,
you know, unless you've got something going. And I mean, even the label Frontiers, you know, they want him involved in so many projects because they know just what kind of a producer he is, as well as his vocal and guitar talent. So yeah.
Well said, mate. Definitely right there. I mean, there's a difference in there between not liking something and then thinking someone's not talented. You're completely right there. I mean, I can hear something that's not metal, but I know it's clever, or you know, I can understand why people like it. You know, there you go. Okay, then, mate. So interesting now, because we get to the number 2, so we're going to know what number 1 is. So my number 2 is actually One-Sided War. So brilliant album, again, a step up. I've got it an 8.7, so I'm scoring high now. Some of the songs on here, man, I mean, this is so, you know, they're all quite high in my scores for every song on this. I haven't fallen below a 7, if you like. They're all above 7. The title track's probably my favorite on the album, One-Sided War. I think it's a great song. Bizarre is also an amazing song. Can't Take This Life I Love, Only You. Man, it's full up. It's really full up with great songs. And again, getting heavier again. You know, the melody's still there, but the heaviness is still there, just like you get with Striper in it. There's so much melody there, but there's so much heaviness at the same time. It's not easy to do that, man. Have heaviness and melody at the same time, but he can do it, you know. It's a great album.
Looks like you and I are on the same page again. I also got One-Sided War as my number 2.
We have the heart and the soul of a king. who we are. We could move mountains into anything, but we just step back from the fire.
There you go.
I scored it a 7.89. Standout tracks for me were the title track, One-Sided War, Can't Take This Life, and I mentioned this the other day. I'm curious to get your take on it as well, but like my great song, period, and I just really love the version featuring Mariah Formica. So I'm curious which version you preferred between just him alone and the one that she was on it. But yeah, oh my God, I'm just in love with her voice too.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm going to take a lot of stick for this. I hope there's not many women watching this channel. But I don't know. I'm not a fan of female singers. I just can't. There's the occasional song I can listen to, but I've never. It's nothing against females. Obviously, I love females, but as far as musically is concerned, I've never managed to get into it. I can appreciate it, like we were saying earlier on about appreciating good voices.
Mm-hmm.
I can appreciate it, but I just can't get along with it in rock music, especially. And I know some of these are not really heavy stuff and that, but it's just the way I am. I mean, I don't mind the odd Heart song, for instance. I think it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Stevie Nicks, I can appreciate her voice and stuff like that, but I don't know what it is. It's nothing against women whatsoever in rock music. I think it's great that they're there, but as far as my taste is concerned, I prefer the Michael Sweet version.
Okay.
On his own.
Yeah, no, I actually tend to agree with you in a lot of cases. I'm for the most part, I'm not a big fan of female rock vocalists. But that being said, there are a few that I have really grown to love. I mean, I love Heart, of course. Yeah, Mariah, she's just, oh my God, she's got just such an incredible range. And to think that she's only she was like 16 at the time, just I guess 18 or 19 now, but or maybe she's 20, I don't know. So she's young, a lot younger than you and me there, Lee. So,
oh yeah, everyone is.
And then you think of like Hailstorm. There's another great female vocalist there, and some of the stuff out of the European symphonic metal. There's a lot of female vocalists, like Battle Beast. What's it called? Bear Infinity. Another band.
There's no shortage, mate. I mean, Frontiers themselves. We mentioned Frontier. You mentioned Frontiers earlier. That they're spilling out loads of female vocalists on their label.
Mm-hmm.
It's a cool thing. It is a cool thing. It's just a matter of taste, like everything, mate, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I'm sure we're going to get a lot of stick for our ranking. We're pretty of these albums, It's just a taste thing, innit? It's just what you like. It's your favourites. It's a personal thing. So there you go.
What could be your favorite?
Then, mate. Yeah, so both of our favourites, but I'll go first. Is obviously the newest album, 10. I just think it's amazing. I've actually scored it a 9.1. I'm being really generous now, and so. But this, man, I know you were surprised the other day on the track ranking that I didn't score "Son of Man" as my top track because of the Toddler Torah connection as well. But it is an absolutely great track. What a way to finish an album as well. "Better Part of Me" is a great song, and it's got my favourite Michael Sweet song on as well, "Now or Never," which I voted as my number one. I just love it. The title track's a great track, isn't it? It's an absolutely belter. "Ricochete's" great. "With You Till the End." Every track is a really good track, and I think this is the heaviest one as well. And I'm not saying I like it because it's the heaviest. It's just every song to me is a standout track. You know, it's a brilliant album, and it just makes me really excited for this year. You know,
Mhm.
what we're going to get again, and we're going to get, and that's the good thing about this, isn't it? Is that, I mean, when we was doing the rank, when we was looking at the Striper albums and talking about those,
Mhm.
which we do often. What's our favourite? You know, and especially out of the last four. I mean, my still my favourite one is No More Hell to Pay. I know we're going off a subject a little bit, but because it went until Even the Devil Believes, to me, they got No More Hell to Pay was brilliant. Fallen was a little bit less brilliant to me, and Goddamn Evil was even a little bit less. Not a lot. They were still great albums, but then they hit you with Even the Devil Believes. Well, with these ones, they've just got better for me personally. You know, from I'm Not Your Suicide, One Sided War, and 10, they've just got better and better. So that's got me really excited and thinking, what's this next one going to be like? You know, and I don't think I'm going to be disappointed. Michael's just turning out some amazing material. I mean, even the stuff we're hearing in it, little clips of Sunbomb the other day sounded amazing, didn't it?
You know what? I don't think I heard it.
Yeah,
Shut up.
it was literally, mate, a few seconds, like I don't know, 30 seconds to a minute, between 30 seconds to a minute.
I remember hearing something, I think, a while back, but I didn't see anything a couple days ago, so I'll have to look that up. But
No, it wasn't. No, it was a while back, mate. That's what it was.
Oh,
It
okay.
wasn't. Yeah, but I'm just saying he's churning out some. Whoever he works with as well, just churns out some amazing stuff.
Yeah, it's just brilliant. Yeah. So yeah, my number one, like you as well, 10.
No matter what you're going through, you gotta reach the goal. Hey, there's only one of you. Hey, don't let life run you through. Hey, you will never cave. You don't have to hide. All you have to do is shine.
I scored it an 8.53.
Yep.
It's a little tough on it, I guess. Now I noticed something. So for you, 10 scored even higher than Even the Devil Believes.
You know what? It has, yeah.
Yeah, you
has.
had No More Hell to Pay at 9.2, and you have 10 at 9.1, and you and I both had Even the Devil Believes at 8.9, I believe.
There you go. There
Yeah.
you go. It ain't until you really break them down that you get to understand how good they are, I suppose. But
Yeah, and I did say that, you know, and I said it on Saturday there with Marcus, like, you know, when 10 came out at the time, I said that was some of the best stuff Michael's done, period, whether it's Striper or solo. It was just an absolute brilliant album. Yes, my number one song was definitely Son of Man. I mean, just that song, just I don't even know how to describe it. Like when I first heard it, I was like, oh my gosh. You know, also Shine was my favorite until Son of Man came out. Because they were, you know, the singles. The only song on this album that I didn't really care for that much was surprisingly the title song. I know you said you liked it, and don't get me wrong, it's not a bad song. I couldn't get into the melody on the title track as
It's
much
different.
like, yeah, it's very different, and it just didn't gravitate to me as an individual. But I mean, it was still a good song, and you know, it's obviously, you know, putting the 10 Commandments to music, so it was kind of an interesting song there.
I don't know about you as well. Do you, when you hear a title track of an album, you got high expectations as well that it's the title track? I'm like that. I am like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, that's one thing. We're talking about Even the Devil Believes, and I think I mentioned this in one of our previous calls. Is Michael had talked, like, back when the album was in its early stages, he had mentioned the song Forgotten Rock and Roll.
Hmm.
And I thought, oh my God, that's so Striper, man. That's just awesome. And what do you bet that's going to be the title song on the album, like the title track, that's just so great. And then, it comes out, it's Even the Devil Believes. And, Even the Devil Believes, like you, I mean, it was, I don't know if, I can't remember now if I gave it a full 10, but I definitely gave
I did.
two on the others
I did.
10. I gave, it was either a 10 or really close to it, but and then Forgotten Rock and Roll ended up not being, it's probably one of my lesser favorite songs on the album. But but yeah, it's just, I don't know what the stuff that Michael's come up cranking out there right now is just, it's blowing my mind. I don't understand how he does it. Like, it's just mind-boggling. Like, I can't think of another musician out there that is doing so much material, so many different projects with so many different people, and every one of them is turning to gold. I mean, it's just like you think it's got to end soon. How does one individual do that? Like,
as well, a lot of bands are through all this business. They're taking it. If anything, they're holding back on their material, and Michael seems to think, well, he's sort of taking advantage of it, maybe, because a lot of these bands are not releasing anything. I mean, we're going to get a few this year, hopefully, but everyone's been a bit quiet, haven't they? If you look at the releases last year, it wasn't as packed as it should have been because people are holding back, aren't they, because they're not touring. But Michael seems to be just banging it out. But
it's crazy. I just thought of something. I think that I think DC Comics, the DC universe, I think they just need to put Michael Sweet in the role of Superman. Maybe that'll save the franchise.
Yeah, definitely. Excellent, mate. We're I think we're done. I really enjoyed doing this. I mean, like you said, it made me listen to the old stuff again, which was cool. And I didn't even realise that I scored it higher than Even the Devil Believes. That even shocks me, that does. Especially as I've been tighter on my scores lately. But, it just shows you how strong it is. I mean, I think Michael would like that. If he was listening to this, he would like to know that his solo stuff was recommended so highly by me and you. That's a really good thing, because sometimes it gets a bit overlooked, doesn't it?
Yeah, for sure.
So, yeah, I'm sure he'd be proud of that. So...
if he is watching, Michael, just know we love what you're putting out there, man. And it's both with Striper and solo, and your various projects with these other top-notch musicians. Just great stuff, and I look forward to the next one for sure. Can't wait to hear what's coming next.
Definitely, mate. Well, thanks very much for talking to me again, mate. And I'm going to have you on very shortly anyway. We're doing something together very soon that we can't really talk about, and so there you go.
Oh, yes. I believe we do have something coming up in a few days.
Exactly. So, all right, mate.
We'll keep that a secret between you and I for now. So
definitely. I'll tell you what, if anyone wants to put their comments below our video today, ranking their favorite albums, what do you think of our ranking as well? That'd be great to hear everyone's opinion. Do you agree with us? We're both sort of similar with our top albums, weren't we? But our bottom albums vary quite a bit, so we're quite interested to hear what everyone says. So thanks everyone. Thanks, Paul, and I'll see you again soon.
All right, buddy.